Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Into 99 podcast, where we've got 99 cards because Commander's number one. I'm your Necromancer with all the answers, Necro Zach, joined by my lovely friend Slothy. How you doing today, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. We're finally back up in positive temperatures up in Canada, so can't complain. How you doing today?
I'm all right. I got a little bit of some sinus issues going on, so I probably sound really annoying. But guess what? If you're listening to this episode, you get to hear me talk for about an hour, so enjoy. Uh, Noticeably, Dan is missing from the podcast today. He's trucking through America as we speak. Maybe not. Maybe he is. I don't know. But I'm going to say that because it sounds cool. So while the cat's away, the mice will play. And today I'm bringing you a deck tech that isn't a fake group hug deck. This is all just aggression. um, Today we're going to be talking about Isshin. The Isshin Two Heavens is One. It's a new Kamigawa commander. But before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know today's episode is partially sponsored by Abyss Proxy Shop. So our good friends our good friend Atomic Ashes actually sent me a bunch of proxies for this deck, and they look sick. When the episode goes up, I'll have pictures of the proxies that I'm using in this deck that he made me. If you like the proxies, you want to get some of them for your own deck, or you want to see what other goodies he has, you can go to his shop and you can use the promo code IT99 and you'll get, I believe it's 10% off your first order. It's 10 or 5. I don't have the card in front of me like I normally do because I cleaned and now I regret it. But with that out of the way, let's start talking about the deck. So Isshin, Two Heavens is One, is a Mardu commander, so he's red, white, black. He's a human samurai legendary creature, 3/4, and he reads: if a creature attacking would cause a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. This works if you have creatures attacking that cause something to trigger, or if your opponent's attacking you with creatures or attacking in general creatures triggers something. This is going to happen. So the whole deck is basically just like I said, pure aggression. We're going to be doing a lot of attacking or hoping that we can make our opponent attack to cause things of ours to trigger. So getting right into it, we're going to talk about the land base. Typically, we save that for last, but because it's kind of short and there are a few things I want to like specify in this deck, uh, I figured we just get it out of the way. So I'm running a bunch of different utility lands, all the on-color fetches and shocks and duels. Once again, thanks Atomic Ashes, appreciate it. But the 4 lands that I think are most important in this utility section are the artifact lands. We have Ancient Den, Vault of Whispers. Where's the other guy? Darksteel Citadel and Great Furnace. So a black, a red, a white, and a colorless. The reason why I think these are so important is because I have a lot of artifact interactions. It cares about how many artifacts we have or how many artifacts that are tapped when a creature is attacking. So these are just going to be setting um, on the battlefield, just netting us mana and advantage. I'm also running the dual color um, bridges from Modern Horizons 2. Those are artifact lands that tap for one of our 2 colors and they have indestructible, but they enter the battlefield tapped. So it's a little bit slower, but with the average CMC being a little bit above 3, I think it's like 3.6. I still feel like it's fine, especially with the ramp package we're running. So keep all those lands in mind. Those 7 artifact lands in
Yeah.
mind while we're going over this deck. So at the top, we're looking at ramp. Ramp is pretty straightforward. I'm running all the 3 diamonds that are in color. So charcoal being black, fire being red, marble being white. They're 2 cost artifacts that enter the battlefield tapped, and they tap for each of the 1 colors respectively. Slothy, you want to take the uh, next couple?
Yeah. So you're also running Mox Opal,
Mm.
zero cost legendary artifact with Metalcraft. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Activate it only if you control 3 or more artifacts, which from what I've seen in this deck will not be a problem
Mm-hmm.
because you're also running Smothering Tithe,
Yep.
which 3 and white for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If that player doesn't, you create a colorless treasure artifact token with sacrifice this artifact and add 1 mana of any color. This would help activate the Mox Opal, and then in a pinch, you could also just sacrifice them for mana.
Yep. I know it's like people hate Smothering Tithe and Rhystic Study, but once again, like I now have a bunch of proxies thanks to Atomic Ashes, and also like for this deck, I don't feel like it's too. I don't feel like it's too oppressive because we're in three colors that isn't green, so the Smothering Tithe really helps. But also, sometimes I just want to have the artifacts on the battlefield. I'm not even using it for mana; it's mainly just to up my artifact count. Maybe it'll turn on my Mox Opal, or maybe it'll just help me play one of my diamonds. It sounds silly, but in Mardu, it just anything we can do to get more lands or more mana is going to be important. Um, I'm also running Mox Amber, another zero cost artifact. It's a legendary artifact though, and it can tap for one of any. I'm sorry, you add one mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. So I could tap this for, if I play Isshin, I could tap this for one of my three colors.
Yeah.
Running good old Arcane Signet and Soul Ring. It's a commander deck. We really want the mana and we really want the artifacts being on the battlefield, so they're important. Slothy, you
Yeah.
want to take the last two artifacts in this section?
Absolutely. So the last two artifacts, they're both swords. The first one is Sword of Hearth and Home, 3 mana artifact equipment with equip 2. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from green and from white. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile up to one target creature you own. Then search your library for basic land card, put both cards onto the battlefield under your control, and then shuffle.
So some people would probably say this should be, if I was wanting to be more efficient, this should probably be Feast and Famine, so I can untap all my lands. But once again, there are a couple creatures in this deck, or a couple enchantments in this deck that really care about creatures entering the battlefield, or creatures re-triggering their ETBs, or even lands coming into play. So we'll talk about those creatures and I'll reference them when they come back up. But keep in mind, this is another card that through the game, if you get it and we have the right like kind of package on board, this is going to generate so much mana, or not mana, sorry, value in general.
And speaking of value, Sword of the Animist is the next one there. It's a 2 mana legendary artifact equipment with equip 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle.
Yeah, it's really good in this deck.
Yeah, yeah,
Netting because if we have Isshin out, we're netting 2 lands off of 4 mana essentially.
yeah.
That's
That's not bad.
like if the dream would be like play our commander and then play sword and equip the next turn and then get 2 lands off of it.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
there are probably better. I could probably do better than that, but that would just be like the run of the mill. Like this is nice. I enjoy this. So that's our rant package. It's pretty short and sweet. It's got some cool stuff in it. I was very happy with what I came up with. We're going to move over to our interaction section. In here, we're going to have things that like just interact with the board or with the board state in general, whether it be removal or reanimation or just protection in general. So at the top of the list is Blasphemous Act. It's probably probably my second or third favorite red card. And I got the really cool like the horror movie art from the Secret Lair drop that came out a couple months ago. So if you don't know,
yeah,
Blasphemous Act is a sorcery. It costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield, and it's 8 colorless, 1 red, and 13 damage to each creature. It's just solid. It's very good removal. Unless creatures have like indestructible, this is going to clear the board.
yeah, yeah. Then next one here is Boros Charm. Red and white for an instant. You can choose one. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player or planeswalker. Permanents you control gain indestructible till end of turn. And target creature gains double strike until end of turn. I
Honest,
remember,
go ahead.
sorry, well, I remember I was playing a game over Spelled Table probably about 5 or 6 months ago. And guy I was against had a card, I forget what it was called, but it let him like flip the top card of my library and then he could cast that.
Hmm.
And I was at exactly 4 life. And it was us two. And then I was like, oh, please don't be Boros Charm. Then it flips and it's Boros Charm.
Nice. Yeah, every mode on this card is relevant. The 4
Yeah.
damage to either player or planeswalker is. Typically, you're probably going to pick the second. Permanent you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Like I was just talking about Blasphemous Act before it. Like going Blasphemous Act for 1 and then Boros Charm for 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very reasonable. And even the double strike, if that can just end the game. If we get a lot of like fun things going on with Isshin, like he could probably kill someone very easily.
Oh, definitely.
Um, Next on the list is probably one of my favorite cards that's came out of the most recent one of the most recent standard sets is Well, it wasn't even standard. It was the commander decks. I'm a dummy. It's Cosmic Intervention. It's 3 and a white for an instant. If a permanent you control would be put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, exile it instead. Return it to the battlefield under the owner's control at the beginning of the next end step, and you can foretell it for 1 and a white. I love this card. Um, you can use it in so many different ways. If you're sacrificing your own creatures, you can Cosmic Intervention, sacrifice your creatures to like an astronaut's altar or something like that, and then they'll come back, and you literally don't lose anything. There's a lot of really fun things and interesting things you can do with this, but I'm mainly using it in this deck as protection. Once I get a couple of like my pieces on the board, people are not going to want it to want them to stick around. So being able to like reset the board with a board wipe and my stuff come back, so like people are wasting cards, is going to be
Yeah.
super super relevant.
And this is also good if you've got the mana to pair with Blasphemous Act too.
Yeah. In most cases, honestly, Blasphemous Act is going to be 1 red. So for 5 mana, you could potentially reset the board except for your stuff. It becomes like a one-sided
Yeah.
board. Or I'm sorry, it becomes like a, one-sided board wipe.
So next up, we've got Fracture, white and a black for an instant, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker.
Yeah. Once again, just solid removal. Like we're probably the best removal colors in the game.
Yeah.
Fracture, normally I would run something like Crush Contraband, but I don't really care if things get exiled in this deck. Like I'd rather just destroy them for cheaper mana cost than just exile them and give any kind of advantage to my opponents.
Yeah.
Next on the list is Ghostly Prison. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. This is really, really good in this deck. I'm running a bunch of different enchantments. And this obviously is one of them that's going to add to my list of enchantments to make my creatures bigger or just add bonuses. But this is just, this is just silly because it's going to stack with, I believe it does stack with my commander. So it's just going to tax people out of attacking me, which is nice. I want
Yeah.
other people to attack other people,
Exactly.
so I can do whatever I want.
Next up is Ruinous Ultimatum. 2 red, 3 white, and 2 black for sorcery. Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
like I said,
Yeah,
best removal colors for sure. I'd be remiss if I didn't put this in a deck that has black in it. I'm playing Phyrexian Reclamation. 1 black for an enchantment. 1 in a black, pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I play this card in almost every black deck. I love it.
Good card.
People are going to remove my creatures, and there are a lot of creatures in this deck that I want to be able to recast and have stay on the battlefield.
Yeah. Next one up is Terminate. Black and a red for an instant, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated.
This could probably be something different, but I don't care.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's got the cool Sun Titan art. It's fine.
It's fine.
So last card in this section is Vandal Blast. 1 red for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact you don't control, or you can overload it for 4 and a red.
Very good card.
It's very good. Yeah. So that's my interaction section. Next, we're going to move on to card draw. I really, really like this section. There's a lot of very fun cards I get to use because of how this deck plays. At the very top of the list, you want to go ahead and take that card, Slothy?
Yep. I think I've got a different list than you. There's only 1 card for card draw.
Oh my goodness. Try refreshing it real quick.
Yeah. Nope. Still just the 1. Still Kiri.
Okay. Well, then if you want to read that one, I'll just bang out the rest.
Absolutely. So we've got Akiri Fierce Voyager, 1 red and a white for legendary creature, Core Warrior, 3/3. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card, and you can pay white, and you may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn. Very, very good.
Right. There's not as many in equipment as I could be running in this deck, and it's definitely like this could be something else, but it's just very powerful for what It does because all I need it to do is set on the battlefield, honestly. And if I
Yeah.
attack, like, imagine having Sword of the Animus attached to one of my creatures, having Isshin and Akiri out, so attacking, getting 2 lands, and drawing, 2 cards.
Mhm. Yeah, Akiri was one that I put in Wyleth as well for pretty much the same purpose, just kind of sitting there.
Yeah, it's super powerful, and for 3 mana and Mardu to get me more card draw without, like, any kind of restrictions is nice.
Yeah.
But I do get to run the cards in red that I love for drawing. So the first one is Cathartic Reunion, 1 in a red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard 2 cards. You draw 3 cards. I don't mind to discard cards ever. I love looting, so we're good. Faithless Looting's the almost exact same thing. It's 1 red for a sorcery, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and flashback for 2 in a red. We have Faithless Salvaging, 1 in a
Yeah.
red for an instant. You discard a card, draw a card, and it has rebound, so it'll happen again at the beginning of your upkeep. This next card, I'm super excited about because we can't play the creature version of it because it's banned, but the artifact version isn't. We have Mask of Grizzlebrand, 1 double black for a legendary artifact equipment. It equips for 3. Equipped creature has flying and lifelink. Whenever a equipped creature dies, you may pay X life, where X is its power. If you do, draw X cards. Ooh,
Card.
it's very powerful. Like, Grizzlebrand is banned,
Yeah.
so like you get almost all the good stuff from Grizzlebrand except the actual creature. You still have to go through a little bit more of a hassle, but it's totally worth it, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
And
ne-
then,
oh, go ahead.
oh, I think I found it.
Okay.
Uh, Next one up is Morbid Curiosity. 1 and 2 black for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. Draw cards equal to the converted mana cost of the sacrificed permanent.
It's real good. You compare it with
Sure.
Mask of Grizzlebrand to attack someone for, maybe 6, use Morbid Curiosity on the creature, pay 6 life, draw 6 cards, spend 3 mana.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, I was really excited with that interaction. I really like this card. I wish it was a
Mhm.
sorcery. I mean, not sorcery, an instant. I wish it wasn't sorcery speed, but it's still very
Yeah,
good.
yeah, definitely.
Um, Next, we have Read the Bones. It's 2 and a black for a sorcery. You scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. I love Read the Bones so much.
Yeah, pretty solid. Next up is Thrill of Possibility. 1 in a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card and draw 2 cards.
Like I said, I love looting. I love
Yeah,
looting
yeah,
so much. Um,
absolutely.
this next card, I'm surprised isn't played more than what it is. It's Tome of Legends. It's 2 for an artifact. It enters the battlefield with a page counter on it. Whenever your commander enters the battlefield or attacks, put a page counter on Tome of Legends. You can pay 1, tap it, remove a page counter from Tome of Legends, and draw a card. In this deck, it's so powerful because your commander is going to put 2 counters on it every time it attacks.
Yeah,
And it's very worthwhile to note that you have to pay the 1 to tap it. While that seems like a drawback in other decks because you can't like abuse it as much, in this deck, the having tapped artifacts is very important.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, you want to take the last one?
Absolutely. So the next one up is Tormenting Voice. 1 in a red for sorcery as an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card, and then draw 2. And yeah, the last one, Village Rites. Black for an instant as additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, and draw 2.
Love that.
Very, very good card.
Village Rites is probably no, I can't say that because it's so many black cards are my favorite. It's really, really hard to just put that into words. It's like picking your favorite child. You know.
Fair enough.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to the largest section in the deck. I refer to it as attacking triggers because this is an amalgamation of creatures, enchantments, artifacts. There's a lot going on here, but this is the bread and butter. This is what the deck is about. These are the creatures and stuff you want to be playing, and you are going to get a ton of value out of them. So at the very top of the list, we have Alabu Ancient Witness, 3 a red and a white for a 4/5 legendary artifact creature Golem. Other artifact creatures you control have haste. Whenever 1 or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alabu Ancient Witness deals X damage to any target, and you scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control. This is what I was saying was so important about having tapped artifacts because this is going to trigger twice, and it's going to be massive.
Yeah.
That's a lot of damage that you can put at someone. When I last counted, I could be off because I just did it quickly, but I think I could potentially have 18 to 20 tapped artifacts, and 7 of them are lands. So that's not hard to get those lands. And then being able to scry that many, it's almost like a tutor because
Yeah, that
you're probably going to find what you want.
searching through a fifth of your deck, you're gonna find something that's appealing.
Exactly. And the damage is
Yeah.
just insane. And it's any target, planeswalker, creature, player.
Yeah. Basically just picking what's the biggest nuisance on the board at any given time and just
Yeah,
getting rid
this
of it.
this is a Dan threatening card, right? Like, hey, leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, you
Um,
want
yeah.
take the next one?
Yeah. So the next one is Archon of Cruelty. It's a 6/6 creature Archon for 6 double black. With flying, whenever Archon of Cruelty enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, and loses 3 life. You draw a card and gain 3 life. Triggering that twice is once again Dan level.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and it's so good. It's a better Titan, right? This
Yeah.
is like this is what you want. You want to be able to play Archon of Cruelty with Isshin out and then just smack people. Like, could you
Yeah.
imagine just having Archon out with Sword of the Animus equipped?
Was
Ugh.
that two lands, 2 cards, gain 6 life. Target opponent loses 6 life, sacrifices 2 creatures or planeswalkers, discards 2 cards.
Like, that's not unreasonable to have happen. That's not an unreasonable board state whatsoever.
No. No. Maybe that's the problem though.
Probably. You know what's not the problem? Definitely the next card. Aurelia, the War Leader. It's not a problem.
No, no, not at
Two,
all.
two double red, double white, 3/4 legendary creature, angel, flying vigilance, haste. Whenever Aurelia, the War Leader attacks for the first time each turn, untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
pretty solid.
I'm fairly positive it triggers twice, but I'm not entirely sure. But it is the first time, so I'm assuming that gets me two two combat steps.
Yeah, I
Or,
think that should work.
wait, no, would it be three? It'd be 3 combat steps. It'd have the when you start, you attack,
Mhm.
you get 1, and then Isshin will see it and we'll get 2. So we'll have 3.
Yeah, yeah, just
that
two additional combat steps.
so basically Archon just kills someone.
Yeah, yeah.
Love it. This is not a pretend group hug deck. This is an aggressive deck. I said that at the beginning. I'm honest. At least you
Yeah, fair
know.
enough. Next one here is Brina the Demagogue, a 1/3 legendary creature bird warlock for 1, a white and a black with flying. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card, and you put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature you control.
How sick is that?
Group hug, encouraging people to attack each other
Yes.
and not.
All right. Because I
Yeah.
believe the opponent would get to draw 2 cards, right?
Yes, it would
Which
trigger it twice.
see, that's at least a nice card. I'm not pretending to be group hug, but that's a nice card. But 4+1/+1 counters on something, yes, that's what we want.
Yeah, not bad.
Next, we have Bruce Tarl Boorish Herder. 2, a red and white for a legendary creature human ally, 3/3. Whenever Bruce Tarl Boorish Herder ETBs or attacks, target creature you control gains double strike and lifelink until end of turn.
A good way to give multiple of your creatures double strike and lifelink.
Very, very solid.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, kill someone, essentially.
Yeah,
This deck
exactly.
is probably just gonna hurt people, like, a lot.
Makes sense. So, next one up is Brutal Horde Chief, 3/3 Orc Warrior for 3 and a black. Whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And it's got 3 hybrid Boros. Creatures your opponents control block this turn of able, and you choose how those creatures block.
So this probably whenever a creature you control attacks, or whenever a creature your opponent control attacks, like, those lines of text are my favorite in this deck. So we're going to start seeing them a lot more as we move on.
Yeah.
But Brutal. I think a lot of people were in the same boat as me, wishing Brutal Horde Chief was a legendary creature because he's already super sick on his own. So to pair him with Isshin, it's just like it's a great match. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, next card is super spicy, and I'm pumped that I was able to fit it in here. It's Coastline Marauders. It's 2 and a red for a human pirate, 0/3. It has trample. Doesn't sound great, I know. Whenever Coastline Marauders attacks, it gets +1/+0 until the end of the turn for each land defending player controls. And then it encores for 4 red.
Yeah. That's mean.
That's nutty. All right, Mr. Green player. Okay, Dan playing Multani. Oh, you've got 30 lands? Dope. Coastline Marauders attack. He's now a 63. Oh, you're dead? You can't block that?
What?
Yeah, Coastline Marauders is so cool. And the Encore is also insane because it could potentially just kill the table with Isshin out.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, once again, not unreasonable. If it doesn't kill the table, it could do a massive amount of damage. This card followed up after a board wipe could be just, like I said, yeah, it could just win the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Next one up is Drawn to the Last Blood Chief, a 4/4 legendary creature vampire cleric for 3 double black. It's got flying. Whenever Drawn to the Last Blood Chief attacks, defending player chooses a non-legendary creature card in your graveyard. You return that card to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, and that creature is a vampire in addition to its other types.
Love this card. I had to put reanimation in here somewhere, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
And a lot of our creatures that are good are non-legendary. Like, what if they just give you back a Coastline Marauders? Like, that doesn't seem bad. And suddenly it's a 1/4.
Yeah.
Those stats don't seem that impressive, but still, like, you get to a point where they're going to give you back something that they're going to regret later on, which is sweet.
Like a Brutal Horde Chief.
Exactly. We'll show Wizards this is what you get for not making this guy legendary.
Exactly.
So this will be the first non-creature in this section. It's Duelist Heritage. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature gain double strike until end of the turn. This card is super sweet because not only can you do it on your turn, but you can do it on your opponent's turns. So maybe you just want to whittle the table down so you can, Coastline Marauder them to death or Brutal Horde Chief them to death or something else stupid. This can do that very easily.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's an enchantment, which is going to help Ghostly Prison out. Or not Ghostly Prison, goodness. I'm thinking of something different. Never mind. Forget I said that.
Next.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Next up is one of my favorite cards. Tali Primal Storm. A 6/6 Elder Dinosaur for 4 double red. It's a legendary creature. Whenever Tali Primal Storm attacks, exile the top card of each player's library, then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost.
You know what's better than this happening once?
This happening twice.
I love it. You guys hated my Negan deck? Well, you're not going to like this deck. Yeah, this Atali's sick anyways, like you said, but being able to do it twice is just so brutal.
Yeah.
Next card on the list, X's Auroch Overlord. 1 white, double black, legendary creature, human warlock, 2/4. It has double strike, then it has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So with a lot of our looting effects, if this is on the battlefield, tight.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm going to pitch this creature to draw 2 cards and get this creature back if it's non-legendary. But the backside is really what we're here for. The front side is just nice. The backside is Awaken the Blood Avatar. 6 black red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Create a 3/6 black and red avatar creature token with haste, and whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent.
Yikes.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Once again, it has that line of text that I really like that we saw in Brutal Horde Chief. Like, but this one's doing 3, which would, if Isshin's out, 6 to each opponent.
Yep.
That is so much damage for 1 attack. And 3/6, like, You could probably block him, but there's a good chance you're not going to kill the token.
Yeah, no,
All right. I'm done
no,
gushing. I'm done gushing over that card. It's sick. I'm so happy I could put it in this deck. You want to carry on with the next sweet spicy card?
absolutely. So the next one is Fathom Fleet Swordjack, 4/3 Orc Pirate for 3 and a red. Whenever Fathom Fleet Swordjack attacks, it deals damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking equal to the number of artifacts you control, and it's got Encore for 5 and a red. This can be very, very bad.
This could just kill the table again.
Yeah.
We have some other ways to generate a massive amount of artifacts that we're going to get to in a little bit. But another like this could easily. What if someone you got your mono blue player probably playing artifacts? Um, there are a lot of. I mean, artifacts are a very popular thing in Commander. Like Fathom Fleet Swordjack can just kill someone
Yeah.
because he doesn't even have to deal damage. It's just on attack.
Yeah, it's on attack trigger, then it'll go twice and
Love it.
yeah.
Next card is actually shot up in price because of this deck. It's Fervent Charge. It's one, a white, a black, a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+2 till end of turn. Blood Avatar, getting +2/+2, and then an additional +2/+2, so +4/+4, and it was a 3/6. Oh, I'm gonna block it. Okay,
Yeah.
like that's a 10 now. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine.
It's, at least you're not pretending.
No, I said from the beginning, this is an aggressive deck. Where when you guys see what the proxy is, like, because I specifically asked Atomic Ashes if he could please make me this specific anime character as Isshin. I'm not going to tell you guys who it is. I'm going to post it on Instagram, so you guys will have to go look. But when you see who it is, you'll be like, oh, I understand why this deck is just like pure power and like all these fireworks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we've got Hellrider, a 3/3 devil for 2 double red with haste. Whenever a creature you control attacks, Hellrider deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker it's attacking.
Cool. We're doing 2 damage. Like,
Yeah, two whole damage.
it's really cool because this deck almost feels like an aristocrat style deck without it being an aristocrat style deck, right? Like, I can just glass cannon someone very easily, or these little bits of damage that you would normally see just skyrocket, right? 4 damage, 2 damage, an extra 2 damage here. If I get a couple of these guys on the battlefield at the same time and I just move to combat, we could be looking at 4 to 6 damage just off attacking with one creature. That's massive.
Yeah.
I can't stress how big this deck gets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of big, we have Ilrog the Raised Boar. 3 double red for a legendary creature, Boar God, 6/6 trample. Whenever Ilrog Boar God attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Return this creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. When Ilrog whenever Ilrog the Raised Boar dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library third from the top. Two creatures for free. I hope I see Ilrog and Archon in the same hand. That's oof.
I don't hope you see that. If we're playing against each other.
But you do, because it's sick.
Yeah, that's true.
Look,
that's true.
I give credit where credit's due. I might not like what's happening, but I'll admit when something's sweet.
Yeah, that's fair. Next up, we've got Inferno Titan, 4 double red for a 6/6 giant. You can pay red to give it +1/+0 till end of turn, and then whenever Inferno Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage divided as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets.
You mean 6 damage?
Yeah, 6 damage.
Once again, these little points of damage get so everything's ×2. It's just absurd. I don't think this commander is ban worthy, but it's very strong, and I think a lot of people are overlooking it.
Absolutely.
Next, we have Carter Doomscourge, 2 black red for a 4/3 legendary creature, Demon Berserker. When Carter Doomscourge ETBs until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. This is a situation where Duelist Heritage is super powerful because you just force these attacks. So you can just set it up. Cool. Duelist Heritage on this guy and this guy. All right, now my other opponents, duelist heritage on these two guys, and you're just sitting there hanging out, and you have all
Yeah.
these great attack triggers that are happening. But there's still another line of text. Whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you're forcing these attacks. You're duelist heritaging things. You're gaining 2 life. Your opponent loses 2 life, or your opponents lose 2 life. It's chef's kiss. I can't do it
Yeah.
because it sounds weird over the thing, but chef's kiss for sure.
Next up, we've got Lelia, the Blade Reforged, 2 and a red for a legendary creature, Spirit Warrior, 2/2 with haste. Whenever Lelia, the Blade Reforged attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. And whenever you exile one or more cards from your library and/or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Lelia. Sorry, I meant exile the top 2 cards of your library.
Exactly, dude. Lelia's sick in this deck. This
Yeah.
was like I was going through my cards and I found the Lorehold commander deck, and there was a couple cards I didn't use from it, and I felt like they just slotted into this deck super, super well. This is one of those
Mhm.
like I just have access to the top 2 cards in my library, and I can play them. So if I'm desperately searching for a land, because I'm running a little bit less land than what I normally do,
Yeah.
I might be able to hit it after 2 cards, and that's very reasonable.
Mhm.
And the haste is just nice. She also gets
Definitely.
massive. Um,
Big, yeah, very big.
yeah. Next, we have Marchesa's Decree. It's 3 and a black for an enchantment. When it ETBs, you become the monarch, also helping with card draw. And there's a good chance we're just going to get to keep the monarchy, if I'm being honest. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1 life. And because this is an attack trigger, they're going to lose 2 life for attacking me.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you want the monarchy that bad, you're going to have to fight for it.
Exactly. Sorry, I have to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's fine. I'll just finish out the deck list.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Right. Talk to you
Bye.
later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Hmm. Well, Dan, if you're listening to that, this was awkward. We're almost finished. Oh well. So next on the list is Mirror Battlesphere. It's 7 costs for an artifact creature mirror contract for 7. When it ETBs, you create 4/1/1 colors mirror creature artifact tokens. Very solid. But the big thing is whenever it attacks, you may tap X untap mirror you control. If you do, Mirror Battlefield gets +X+O until end of turn and deals X damage to each player, or sorry, to the player or planeswalker it's attacking. I stumbled over this so badly because of how powerful this is in this deck. We have Alibu who's going to see this, and it's going to cause a lot of very bad things to happen. And we're going to have Isshin seeing this. It's going to be huge. These mirror are just going to come out of nowhere and turn into this giant ball that's even larger than what it normally is. It's very powerful. Um, this deck is also very cool because I get to play cards that you might not normally play because they're not as good as they could be, but in this deck, being able to double the triggers makes them just too hard to pass up. Parhelion 2 is one of those cards. It's 6 double white for a legendary artifact vehicle 5/5. It has flying, first strike, and vigilance. But the big thing is when it attacks, you create 2/4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance that are attacking. But because of this, we're going to create 4 of those. That's huge. And they don't leave at the end of the turn, or they don't leave at the end of the combat. You just get to keep them. That's gosh, I can't get over how powerful this is. And if you really want to, you could attack. You could tap Isshin and attack with Parhelion, so you're not losing out on attacking with a single creature, or not attacking with one of your big creatures that you'd like to. And with so many creatures that have that like aristocrats feel, you can even tap them, so you don't lose them, so you can keep netting that value over time. Um, this card, I'm still like on the fence. I really like this card and I wanted a deck to put it in. I'm just not sure if this is the right deck or not, but it's Port Razor. 3 double red for a 4/4 Orc Pirate. When Port Razor deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this combat, there's additional combat phase. Port Razor can't attack a player that has already attacked this turn. So we can potentially get to attack each player and set up a bunch of really, really crazy like lines of play that we might not normally get to, and could potentially just win the game off of just this single card, depending on how okay our board state is. Because I don't think it really takes a lot to get there. So This isn't necessarily an on attack trigger, but I wanted to put it in this section because so many of our other things are going to get to trigger off of getting to attack an additional time, an additional time, an additional time. um, Next, we have Rakasha Debaser. It's 4 double black for a cat demon 6/6. When it attacks, you put target creature card from defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and it encores for 6 double black. This lets us take whatever we want out of people's graveyards twice. Like, I'm not necessarily reanimating, but it sure feels like I'm reanimating, and that's good enough for me. We move on to Revenge of Ravens. It's 3 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Still that same line of text. We're going to compound this over many different things, and this is going to be 2 damage and 2 life that we're gaining, essentially, because there's going to be 2 different instances of this. I really like this card. It's a little bit heavy on the CMC, but I think it's worth it for just getting to nickel and dime people. This next card is a new one that I'm pretty excited to play with. It's Search the Premises. It's 3 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you investigate. So you get to create a colorless clue artifact token. We really like getting a draw a card for 2 is going to be really useful in this deck, but also just netting so many artifacts that are just sitting on the battlefield. It's going to make our Alibu like potentially be able to get big. I mean, we have to sacrifice them, so I guess they won't stick around, but just the potential of making a couple of our different creatures that care about artifacts large, very good. So we're playing Inferno Titan, so we got to be playing Sun Titan. 4 double white for a 6/6 giant with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So basically, this is saying every time you attack with him, you get to just reanimate a permanent with 3 CMC or less. Super, super good. Moving on to Tectonic Giant. Jesus. 2 double red for an elemental giant. It's a 3/4. And when it attacks or becomes a target of a spell an opponent controls, you choose one. It deals 3 damage to each opponent, or you exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. So we're either going to get card draw when it attacks, or we're going to do 6 damage to each opponent when it attacks, or becomes a target of spell ability. We don't really care because you're not going to get 6 that way. You're going to get 6 from it attacking, and that's massive. All right, so the last 2 cards in this section are actually brand new cards from the Kamigawa set. We have the first one is Thundering Raiju. It's 2 double red for a spirit with haste, and it's a 3/3. Whenever Thundering Raiju attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then Thundering Raiju deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures you control other than Thundering Raiju. So right now, it doesn't sound like we're going to have a lot of creatures because we've only seen a couple of things that are going to modify, but we still have a few other things to get into that are going to really help this get massive and do a lot of damage. Um, on its own, we're going to at least be able to put 2 +1/+1 counters on something, and we're going to get to deal a good amount of damage. Thunder and Raiju is very powerful in this deck. And the last one is Unforgiving One. It's 2 and a black for a spirit 2/3 with menace. And whenever Unforgiving One attacks, return target creature card with mana value X or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of modified creatures you control. Once again, this sounds like we're not going to be able to do a lot with this card, but I promise you it's going to get us some, like, at the end of the game, this is going to be able to get us back so many big things. That's the end of our attacking trigger section. The last one to go over is our utility section. At the very top of the list, we have Brave the Sands. It's 1 and a white for an enchantment. Creatures you control have vigilance. With so many, with us wanting so many attack triggers and so many combat steps, we really want to have the ability to have our creatures untapped. And the crackback is probably going to be very real in this deck. So we don't want to give our, opponents the opportunity to kill us before we can kill them. And it also says each creature you control can block an additional creature each combat. That's also very relevant because if they're trying to kill us, we got to be able to double up on those blocks. So we come to one of the cards that I've kind of been hinting at all game that really cares about how many artifacts we control. It's Bronze Guardian. It's 4 and a white for an artifact creature golem. It's star and 5. It has double strike. It has ward 2. Other artifacts you control have ward 2, and then its power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. This thing is going to be huge. We have so many different ways to generate artifacts, and it having double strike. If we're able to get this unblockable, which we have a couple ways to do that in our land section, or trample, for example, this is probably going to be able to kill or maim someone in the game very easily. Next card's Cathar's Crusade. This is how we're going to get so many of our modified creatures, is because of this card. It's 3 double white for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So, being able to use Sword of Hearth and Home, like we talked about earlier, to bring a creature, basically blink a creature, this is going to trigger. All these creatures are going to get, all of our creatures are going to get super big, super quick, and just make everyone's day unpleasant, except for us. We're going to have a good time. Another card that is really going to shine, I guess, mid to late game is Cranial Plating. It's 2 for an artifact equipment, so this will be able to make one of our creatures modified, which is relevant. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and then you can pay double black to attach a Cranial Plating to target creature you control, and then it equips for 1. Um, we could just kill someone with this card. If we've been making, treasures, or we've been making clue tokens and not using them, cranial plating could potentially just kill someone. We have good old demonic tutor for, to find whatever card we want and put it in our hand for 1 and a black at sorcery speed. We have Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker, 2 triple red for a legendary creature, Goblin Shaman 2/2. It has haste. You can tap it to create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control, except it has haste. You sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Maybe we want another Archon, which we probably always want another Archon, or Brutal Horde Chief, Coastline Marauders. Like, there are just so many creatures that we could make copies of that this card is just too good not to use. The last card on the list that is, I think, really slept on for builds and just fits way too well in this deck is Togo Goblin Weaponsmith. It's 2 and a red for a legendary creature, Goblin Artificer. Not relevant. 2/2. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a colorless equipment artifact token named Rock. With equipped creature has 1 tap, sacrifice Rock. This creature deals 2 damage to any target and equip 1. And it has partner. We're not partnering it with anything. This is mainly in here just so we can get more artifacts. You could probably take this card out, but I just think it's way too good not to use. Being able to generate a ton of artifacts, so our Bronze Guardian gets bigger, or our Cranial Plating gets bigger, or we figure out a way to tap the artifacts with Alabu to make scry a ton, do a ton of damage. The uses are just like, there's just too many not to use, and that's the deck. I think it's very powerful. I think it's very fast, and I think it's a lot of fun. People, your opponents probably are not going to like this deck, but I just think it's fine. I don't think it's overpowered by any means. I think it's just very strong. I typically build with synergy in mind, so this deck I think just oozes synergy. There are a lot of cards that I'm sure you're going to be able to find on EDH Rec that are saying to play, or to play instead of some of the cards I'm playing, and that's fine. These are just the cards I had on hand that I really enjoyed. So that's where we're at. If you like the deck, please let me know if there's something you would play differently, or there's just something you didn't understand interaction wise that I'm playing. Just let us know. I'd love to hear what you think about it, and keep an eye out on our Instagram at Into the 99, because I will be posting the proxies that I got from Atomic Ashes, so you can see the cool cards that I'm using that he gave me art for. Which, once again, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you like what we're doing, please feel free to follow us at Into the 99 on literally anything, whether it be Spotify, whether it be Instagram or Twitter. We're out there. If you want to continue the conversation further, you can join our Discord. We always have people in there talking about new sets, cards, commander decks, looking for games. It's a very good community that's thriving, and we'd love to have you there. If you're listening to us on Spotify, please give us a rating. A 5-star rating would be much appreciated. But don't just rate us, also review. Write a review if you can, please. We would really appreciate it, because that's going to put us up for people to see and interact with us more. And if you want to buy merch, or just read articles from other people in the community that I guess like us, or write with us or for us, we have into99.com. It's your one-stop shop for everything that I probably missed. I think that's it. Sorry for all the stumbling. Like I said, I'm still getting over these allergies, so it's making me a little loopy. But I hope you guys are doing well. Have a good rest of your day.